Long before pharmacies existed, long before a doctor could write you a prescription, long before supplements lined the shelves of every health store on the planet, the land was already the medicine. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples across North America developed something that modern science is only beginning to fully understand. A food system so sophisticated, so intentionally healing, that researchers at leading universities are now calling it one of the most advanced nutritional frameworks ever built by any civilization on Earth. And yet most of us have never heard of it. Most of us were taught that indigenous food was simple, primitive, survival cooking. That could not be further from the truth. Today we go through 20 Native American meals that were designed, not accidentally, but deliberately, to heal the body, strengthen the immune system, restore energy, reduce inflammation, and sustain human beings through conditions that would break most modern people in days. These are not recipes from a history book. These are living foods, foods that kept entire nations healthy for generations, and that modern nutritional science is now studying with growing urgency, because the chronic diseases destroying modern health are almost entirely absent from the traditional indigenous diet. So if you have been exhausted, if you have been inflamed, if you have been told your only options are pills and procedures, stay with me, because what these 20 meals contain is something no laboratory has been able to replicate. Stay until number 20, because the last meal on this list has been used as a healing food for over 2,000 years, and a landmark clinical study from Stanford confirms it does something to the human gut that almost no modern food can match. Let's begin meal number 1, the Three Sisters stew, corn, beans, squash, grown together, eaten together, and understood by indigenous peoples for centuries as a complete system, not just a recipe. The Iroquois called these three crops the Three Sisters because they sustained and protected each other in the field just as sisters do. The corn provides structure. The beans fix nitrogen back into the soil. The squash spreads wide, keeping moisture in and weeds out. Agriculture as ecology. Together in a bowl, they create something nutritionally extraordinary. Corn provides carbohydrates and B vitamins. Beans add protein and the amino acid lysine that corn lacks. Squash delivers beta-carotene, vitamin C, and potassium. The three ingredients complete each other's nutritional gaps, exactly as they do in the field. Modern nutrition science calls this a complementary protein system. Indigenous grandmothers called it dinner, and they had it figured out long before the concept of essential amino acids was even named. The fiber content of this single meal supports gut microbiome diversity, stabilizes blood sugar, reduces LDL cholesterol, and provides sustained energy without the spike and crash of processed food. One bowl. No supplements required. Now, if a vegetable stew can do all of that, imagine what happens when we get to the animal foods. Because the next meal uses a part of the animal that modern food culture threw away. Traditional healers called it liquid medicine. Science now confirms it rebuilds joints, heals the gut lining, and restores the body at a cellular level. Meal number 2, bison bone broth. And this one starts with an animal that was not just food for Plains peoples. It was the center of an entire way of life. The Lakota, the Comanche, the Blackfoot, and dozens of other nations followed the bison herds not out of desperation, but out of deep ecological knowledge. Every part of the animal was used, and the bones, slowly simmered for hours over a fire, were medicine. Bone broth cooked low and slow for 12 to 24 hours releases collagen, gelatin, glycine, proline, and glucosamine, compounds that form the structural matrix of your joints, your gut lining, your skin, and your connective tissue. This is not a wellness trend. This is what traditional healers gave to the sick, to the recovering, to the elderly, because it works. Research published in Nutrients found that glycine, abundant in bone broth, reduces intestinal inflammation, supports liver detoxification, and improves sleep quality. For anyone dealing with IBS, bloating, joint pain, or autoimmune symptoms, this is one of the most powerful healing foods on Earth. But what Plains peoples drank alongside that broth, a specific plant medicine growing along riverbanks, added something no piece of meat alone could provide. The next item on this list contains more vitamin C than an orange, and most people have never considered it food. Meal number 3, cedar tea. For nations across the Pacific Northwest and the Great Plains, cedar was not optional. It was the first thing given to someone who was sick. Western red cedar contains thujone, terpenes, and flavonoids with documented antimicrobial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory properties. A single cup of cedar tea provides more vitamin C than a whole orange, which is precisely why indigenous peoples in the Pacific Northwest did not develop scurvy during long winters with no fresh fruit. Research has confirmed that cedar extracts exhibit significant activity against bacteria, including Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli. Traditional healers used it for respiratory illness, urinary infections, fever, and as a general immune tonic. It was not symbolic medicine. It was functional medicine with a growing scientific foundation. Modern people spend money on vitamin C supplements in plastic bottles. One of the most potent natural sources grows freely across millions of acres of North American forest and was being steeped into tea by indigenous healers for centuries. Now we move to one of the most protein-dense, brain-nourishing, heart-protecting foods in the entire indigenous diet. And the way it was prepared, over open alder wood smoke, does something to its nutrient profile that modern cooking methods simply cannot replicate. Meal number 4, alder-smoked salmon. For the Chinook, the Tlingit, the Coast Salish, salmon was not just the most important food, it was sacred. The first salmon caught each year was ceremonially returned to the river. Wild Pacific salmon delivers over 25 grams of complete protein per 4-ounce serving, significant vitamin D, B12, selenium, potassium, and some of the highest concentrations of EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids found in any food on Earth. Those omega-3 fatty acids are the structural building blocks of the human brain. Every neuron requires DHA to function properly. Populations that ate wild salmon regularly showed lower rates of depression, cognitive decline, and inflammatory disease. This is not correlation. The mechanisms are fully understood. The alder wood smoke itself adds phenolic compounds that function as antioxidants. Traditional smoking was simultaneously food preservation, flavor development, and bioactive enrichment. Indigenous smokehouses were, in nutritional terms, sophisticated food laboratories. Salmon fed nations during the salmon runs, but what did people eat crossing hundreds of miles through winter? What did warriors carry into battle? The answer is a food so calorie-dense and nutritionally complete that modern survival food companies have spent decades trying to replicate it. None of them have. Meal number 5, pemmican. This is the food that sustained plains warriors, Arctic explorers, fur traders, and hunters for weeks at a time. No cooking, no refrigeration, no resupply. Traditional pemmican combines 3 ingredients with precision. Dried pounded bison meat concentrates protein and removes moisture. Rendered bison fat, high in conjugated linoleic acid, provides slow-burning caloric density. Dried berries add vitamin C, antioxidants, and natural preservation compounds. The result is a food with extraordinary caloric density, a nearly perfect protein-to-fat ratio, and a shelf life, without refrigeration, of months or even years. Arctic expeditions in the early 20th century packed pemmican because no other food came close. A piece the size of your fist contains enough complete protein, healthy fat, and calories to sustain a person doing heavy physical labor for half a day. There is no modern trail food that matches that ratio, because indigenous peoples engineered it over centuries of trial, observation, and lived knowledge. Pemmican's power came partly from the dried berries inside it. The next meal takes those wild berries and turns them into something that indigenous healers prepared specifically for people recovering from illness. Rich in antioxidants that modern oncology researchers are now studying in clinical trials. Meal number 6, wajapi, a traditional Lakota wild berry sauce, thick, slow-cooked, and it was given to sick people specifically, not as comfort food, as medicine. Wild chokecherries contain some of the highest antioxidant concentrations of any fruit studied. Wild blueberries, smaller than cultivated varieties, have up to twice the antioxidant activity of their farmed counterparts. These are not gentle wellness foods. These are aggressive cellular defenders. The anthocyanins in dark wild berries cross the blood-brain barrier, reduce neuroinflammation, and protect neurons from oxidative damage. A published review in Advances in Nutrition found that regular berry consumption was associated with reduced cognitive decline, lower blood pressure, and improved insulin sensitivity. Ellagic acid, found in chokecherries and wild strawberries, is currently being studied in oncology research for its demonstrated ability to inhibit the growth of cancer cells in laboratory settings. Traditional healers gave wajapi to the sick and the healing. The science is beginning to understand why. Now we shift to a grain, but not the grains most people think of. This next meal is built on a seed so important to the Ojibwe people that it defined their entire migration patterns and territorial boundaries. And it contains a protein profile that no domesticated grain can come close to. Meal number 7, wild rice soup. Wild rice, manoomin in Ojibwe, is not actually rice. It is the seed of an aquatic grass native to the Great Lakes region, and it is one of the most nutritionally distinct grains in the world. Wild rice contains up to 15 grams of protein per cooked cup, more than double what white rice provides. It carries all 9 essential amino acids, making it one of the very few plant-based complete proteins. Rich in zinc, magnesium, phosphorus, B vitamins, and antioxidants, a nutritional density that domesticated rice simply does not match. Traditional wild rice soup often used duck fat or bison broth as the base, adding fat-soluble vitamins and collagen. Root vegetables added fiber and minerals. The whole dish functioned as a complete macronutrient and micronutrient meal. Protein, fat, carbohydrates, and micronutrients all present together, each enhancing the absorption of the others. The Ojibwe migration story is literally guided by Manamin. The prophecy told them to follow the food that grows on water. Nations built their entire seasonal cycle around its harvest. A food that's sacred is almost always a food that's sustaining. Every meal so far has told the same story. Whole food, complete nutrition, nothing wasted, nothing processed. The next meal takes that philosophy into pure muscle protein, and the specific mineral profile of this meat addresses something that modern people are clinically deficient in at epidemic rates. Meal number 8, elk stew. Elk was among the most prized protein sources for nations across the Rocky Mountains, the Great Plains, and the Pacific Northwest, and the nutritional reasons for that preference are documented and clear. Elk is one of the leanest, most protein-dense red meats on Earth. A 3-ounce serving delivers 22 to 25 grams of complete protein, with significantly less saturated fat than beef. It is exceptionally rich in zinc, a mineral over 40% of adults over 50 are deficient in, and carries iron, B12, and niacin that the body uses directly for energy and immune defense. Because elk live on open land eating native grasses, their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is dramatically healthier than grain-fed livestock. That ratio is one of the most reliable predictors of chronic inflammatory disease in modern populations. Wild game protein like elk consistently sits on the right side of that equation. Now here is something that genuinely surprised me. The next meal uses a tiny seed from a tree growing at high elevation across the desert Southwest. So packed with energy and specific amino acids that Pueblo peoples built their communities around it. And modern nutritionists call it one of the most hunger-suppressing foods ever studied. Meal number 9, pine nut porridge. The Navajo, Hopi, Zuni, and Pueblo peoples harvested pine nuts, pinons, from pinon pines every autumn. The harvest was not casual. Entire communities moved to harvest sites. The nuts were that important. Pine nuts contain pinolenic acid, found almost exclusively in the seeds of pine trees, that stimulates the release of cholecystokinin and GLP-1, 2 hormones that signal satiety to the brain. In a clinical study, people who consumed pine nut oil before meals reduced their food intake significantly without any conscious effort. The hunger simply was not there. A quarter cup of pine nuts delivers around 4 grams of protein, alongside 18 grams of heart-healthy fats, manganese, vitamin E, and vitamin K. Traditional pine nut porridge, ground pinons cooked into a thick mush, was given to nursing mothers, to the sick, and to children as concentrated nourishment. But we are just getting started with the desert medicines. Because the next food grows in one of the harshest environments on Earth and does something to blood sugar regulation that pharmaceutical researchers have spent years trying to understand and replicate. Meal number 10, nopal cactus stew. For the Tohono O'odham, the Apache, and the Pueblo peoples of the desert Southwest, the nopal cactus was not a last resort. It was a cornerstone of the diet. Because the desert does not offer food without reason, nopal cactus contains soluble fiber in the form of mucilage, a gel-like compound that physically slows the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream. Multiple clinical trials have demonstrated that consuming nopal before a high-carbohydrate meal significantly reduces the blood sugar spike, sometimes by more than 30%. For the 37 million Americans currently living with diabetes and the tens of millions more at risk, this single plant offers something that most pharmaceuticals only approximate. And it was growing in the desert, being eaten daily, for thousands of years before the first diabetes medication was synthesized. Nopal also contains betalains, the same pigment compounds found in beets, with documented anti-inflammatory and liver protective properties. Research has shown nopal extracts reduce liver inflammation, support kidney function, and protect cells from oxidative stress. Desert peoples didn't survive harsh environments by accident. They ate the plants that made survival possible. We are halfway through, and I want to say something directly. Every meal on this list follows the same principle. Food is medicine, not food is entertainment. The next one continues that tradition with a bean that grows where almost nothing else can, and that contains something researchers are now calling a prebiotic superfood. Meal number 11, tepary bean stew. Tepary beans are one of the most drought-resistant crops on Earth. They grow in temperatures exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit with almost no water. The Tohono O'odham have cultivated them for thousands of years. Tepary beans contain more protein and fiber per gram than most common beans. Their starch structure is uniquely resistant, meaning a significant portion passes through the digestive system undigested, feeding beneficial gut bacteria rather than spiking blood sugar. Researchers studying the gut microbiome have specifically highlighted tepary beans as one of the most powerful prebiotic foods yet identified. The gut microbiome regulates immune function, mood, inflammation, metabolic rate, and cognitive performance. Feeding it the right fuel is one of the most powerful health interventions available. Tepary beans are that fuel. Now let us talk about wild plants. The next few meals come from forests and riverbanks, and the peoples who gathered them understood plant medicine that modern herbalists are only beginning to formalize. Meal number 12, ramp and venison broth. Ramps, wild leeks, were among the first plants to emerge each spring. For the Cherokee, the Iroquois, and the Algonquin, their arrival was an event. After a winter of dried food, ramps delivered something the body had been starving for. Ramps contain allicin, the same antimicrobial, cardiovascular protective compound found in garlic, but in higher concentrations in wild varieties. They are rich in quercetin, a flavonoid with documented anti-inflammatory properties. And they deliver chromium, a mineral that regulates insulin sensitivity and that most modern people are measurably deficient in. Combined with venison broth, collagen-rich, protein-dense, mineral-loaded, the traditional ramp broth functioned as a spring immune system reboot, a structural repair protocol, and a deep cleanse all in one bowl. Traditional healers served it specifically after illness. The timing of its availability, precisely when the body most needed its compounds, was not coincidence. Now we go back to the plains. To a preparation that the Hidatsa and Mandan peoples used to sustain physical workers, nursing mothers, and recovering patients. Made from a plant that Europe had never seen before contact, and that modern cardiologists now recommend by name. Meal number 13, sunflower seed paste. The sunflower is native to North America. Indigenous peoples domesticated it here, thousands of years before European contact. And they understood its nutritional power long before vitamin E had a name. Sunflower seeds are one of the richest food sources of vitamin E on Earth, the fat-soluble antioxidant that protects cell membranes from oxidative damage. They are also exceptionally high in magnesium, selenium, copper, and tryptophan, which the body converts to serotonin, the neurotransmitter most directly linked to mood stability and emotional regulation. Over 50% of American adults are insufficiently consuming magnesium, involved in over 300 biochemical reactions, including nerve function, blood pressure regulation, and sleep. Sunflower seed paste provides over 25% of daily magnesium per serving. Traditional peoples who ate it daily likely never experienced the magnesium deficiency symptoms, anxiety, muscle cramps, poor sleep, that are now epidemic in modern populations. Here is a food that grows in every wetland and marsh across North America, and that almost nobody in the modern world thinks of as food. But indigenous peoples across the continent knew it as the supermarket of the wild. And it is one of the most nutritionally complete wild plants ever studied. Meal number 14, cattail pollen flatbread. Cattails were called the supermarket of the wild by ethnobotanists, and that is not an exaggeration. Every part of the plant is edible at some stage of its growth. Cattail pollen contains protein, carbohydrates, vitamins bone, B12, B3, C, and beta-carotene, lightweight, easily dried, and storable for months. Mixed with water and cooked on a flat stone, it became a flatbread that sustained entire communities through lean seasons. Research on cattail pollen has confirmed significant antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity. The roots, rhizomes, can be processed into a gluten-free starch flour that is high in fiber and gentle on the digestive system. Indigenous peoples did not require specialty health food stores. The wetlands provided them. The next preparation transformed corn from a good food into a nutritional powerhouse. An ancient process so effective that when European colonists adopted corn without understanding this technique, they developed mass nutritional deficiency diseases that killed thousands. The technique itself is one of the most important culinary discoveries in human history. Meal number 15, hominy, nixtamel stew, perhaps the most intellectually remarkable food technology on this entire list. Developed independently by indigenous peoples across North and Central America thousands of years ago. Nixtamalization, soaking corn in an alkaline solution of wood ash or limestone, does something chemically transformative. It unlocks niacin, vitamin B3, that is naturally bound in corn and completely unavailable to the human digestive system without this treatment. It also dramatically increases bioavailable calcium and improves the amino acid profile. When European colonists brought corn to Europe, they did not adopt nixtamalization. Within decades, pellagra niacin deficiency swept through corn-eating populations, killing hundreds of thousands. The indigenous peoples who had always nixtamalized their corn never developed pellagra. The knowledge was in the technique all along. The next preparation was explicitly classified by Plains nations as a healing food, given to people with digestive problems, to women after childbirth, and to warriors recovering from injury. The compounds driving its healing are now confirmed by gastroenterology research. Meal number 16, chokecherry cakes. For the Lakota, Cheyenne, and other Plains nations, chokecherries were pounded, including the pits, dried into cakes and eaten as healing food. Not as dessert, as medicine. The inclusion of the pits is significant. Crushed chokecherry pits release amygdalin, a compound that in controlled amounts acts as a bitter digestive stimulant, supporting bile production and enzymatic activity in the gut. The berries contain proanthocyanidins, the same compounds in cranberries that prevent bacterial adhesion in the urinary tract, in extremely high concentrations. Research in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that chokecherries have among the highest antioxidant activity of any native North American fruit, higher than blueberries, higher than elderberries, higher than common cultivated cherries. Traditional healers were selecting the most potent healing berries on the continent. We are getting close to the end, and the next meal comes from a cactus that produces its fruit just once a year. A fruit so nutrient-dense that the Tohono O'odham's annual saguaro harvest is, and still is, the ceremonial beginning of the new year. What that fruit contains is something most people in the world will never taste. Meal number 17, saguaro fruit. The saguaro cactus takes 75 years to grow its first arm. It can live for 200 years. When it fruits for just a few weeks in early summer. And the Tohono O'odham have harvested it ceremonially for thousands of years. Saguaro fruit is exceptionally high in natural sugars with a low glycemic impact due to their fiber matrix. It contains high concentrations of vitamin C, calcium, and fatty acids from the seeds. A food that was simultaneously spiritual, ecological, communal, and medicinal. The traditional harvest syrup was fermented into a ceremonial drink consumed communally to call rain. The fermentation process also produced beneficial organic acids and probiotic compounds. Ancient peoples understood, intuitively, that fermentation was transformation, of food and of community, two more, and both are extraordinary. The next meal combines 4 wild plants whose individual healing properties are well documented, and whose combination creates synergistic effects that researchers are only beginning to study. This is where traditional food knowledge becomes something closer to pharmacology. Meal number 18, wild herb medicine soup. This preparation varies by nation and region, but the principle is universal. You do not season food merely for flavor. You season it for function. Sumac, used across the Great Plains and eastern woodlands as a souring agent, contains extraordinarily high concentrations of gallic acid and tannins, with documented antimicrobial, antidiabetic, and anti-inflammatory activity. Research has shown sumac extract to be as effective as metformin in reducing blood sugar in animal models. Sage contains rosmarinic acid and ursolic acid, compounds with documented neuroprotective, antimicrobial, and memory-enhancing properties. Clinical trials on sage extract have shown improvements in cognitive performance in healthy adults and in early Alzheimer's patients. Indigenous healers used it for the mind and the spirit. The science confirms the connection. Yarrow contains achillin and flavonoids with wound healing and liver protective properties. Wild bergamot contains thymol, the same antibacterial compound used in modern antiseptic mouthwashes, but growing wild on the prairie. 4 plants, 4 healing systems, 1 bowl, 1 meal left. The one I promised you at the beginning, a fermented preparation used specifically to restore the sick, to rebuild the gut, to bring back strength after illness. And that a landmark clinical study from Stanford University confirmed outperforms high-fiber diets for microbiome restoration. Before meal 20, meal 19 deserves its full due. Acorn stew. For the Miwok Pomo Yokuts in over 100 California indigenous nations, acorns were the primary staple. Not corn, not beans, acorns. Once leached and processed, acorn flour delivers complex carbohydrates, significant healthy fats from oleic and linoleic acids, protein, iron, calcium, and B vitamins. It is naturally gluten-free with a very low glycemic index. Research on traditional acorn-consuming populations found exceptional metabolic health, stable blood sugar, and low rates of obesity. The combination of resistant starch, healthy fats, and tannin derivative compounds creates a uniquely satiating, blood sugar-stabilizing food matrix. The people who ate acorns daily did not struggle with the metabolic diseases that now define modern illness. Now the one I have been building toward, Meal 20, the fermented preparation that was used to restore the sick, to rebuild the gut, to bring back strength after illness. Confirmed by a landmark Stanford study as one of the most effective gut restoration protocols ever documented. Meal number 20, fermented corn and fermented plant foods more broadly. Every major indigenous food culture across North America developed some form of controlled fermentation. Fermented corn porridge in the southeast, fermented camas root among the Nez Perce, fermented fish and berries in the Arctic. This was not accidental food spoilage. This was intentional biotechnology. Fermentation transforms food in ways that cooking alone cannot. Beneficial bacteria predigest starches and proteins, produce B vitamins including B12, generate short-chain fatty acids that feed gut lining cells, and populate the digestive tract with microorganisms that regulate immune function, reduce inflammation, and improve nutrient absorption across the board. A landmark study from Stanford University published in Cell in 2021 directly compared a high-fiber diet against a high-fermented food diet. The fermented food diet won. It produced significantly greater increases in microbiome diversity and significantly greater reductions in inflammatory markers. 19 immune proteins associated with chronic disease went down measurably. Traditional healers gave fermented food preparations to the sick, to the recovering, to infants transitioning to solid food, to elders losing digestive function. This was not intuition. It was the accumulated clinical knowledge of hundreds of generations of careful observation. We now have a clinical name for what those healers knew intuitively: microbiome diversity. The more diverse the community of beneficial bacteria in your gut, the more resilient your immune system, the lower your inflammatory baseline, the better your mental health, the more stable your blood sugar. Fermented traditional foods build that diversity better than almost any other dietary intervention. 20 meals, 20 healing traditions, each one carrying knowledge that took generations to develop. Let's bring it together. The Three Sisters Stew, a complete protein and fiber system built from 3 plants that feed each other in the field. Bison bone broth, collagen, glycine, and gelatin that repair the gut lining and rebuild joints. Cedar tea, more vitamin C than an orange, with documented antimicrobial activity. Alder-smoked salmon delivering the omega-3 fatty acids your brain is built from. Pemmican, the most calorie-dense, nutritionally complete portable food ever engineered. Wajapi, wild berry medicine with antioxidant power exceeding green tea and red wine. Wild rice soup with more protein than any domesticated grain. Elk stew with an omega ratio that reduces inflammation. Pine nut porridge that suppresses hunger through hormone signaling. Nopal cactus stew that flattens blood sugar spikes by over 30%. Tepary beans feeding a gut microbiome that modern populations are slowly starving ramp, and venison broth delivering spring allicin and quercetin. Sunflower seed paste with more vitamin E than almost any whole food. Cattail pollen flatbread from the Wetlands supermarket. Hominy unlocking niacin that plain corn cannot release. Chokecherry cakes with antioxidant activity higher than blueberries. Saguaro fruit from a cactus that takes 75 years to fruit. Wild herb medicine soup combining sumac, sage, yarrow, and wild bergamot into a single anti-inflammatory preparation. Acorn stew with metabolic benefits that modern dietitians would be hard-pressed to improve on. And fermented corn, confirmed by Stanford to outperform high-fiber diets for rebuilding the gut. Here is what I want you to sit with. Every single meal on this list was developed without laboratories, without clinical trials, without peer-reviewed journals, and yet every single one is now being validated by the most advanced nutritional science in the world. That knowledge was not written down in textbooks. It was passed from grandmothers to grandchildren, from healers to apprentices, across thousands of years, and much of it was nearly lost, deliberately disrupted by policies that separated indigenous peoples from their lands, their languages, and their food systems. The chronic disease rates in modern indigenous communities are not a result of genetic weakness. They are the direct and documented consequence of replacing a sophisticated, nutritionally complete traditional diet with processed food. When the food changes, the health changes. The research is unambiguous. You do not have to be indigenous to benefit from this wisdom, But you do have to be willing to look at food differently, not as entertainment, not as convenience, as the most fundamental act of care you perform for your body every single day. The land that fed these peoples was not depleted by their use of it. It was sustained by it, because they understood something that modern industrial agriculture has largely forgotten. That the way you take from the earth determines whether the earth can give again. If this opened something in you, if it made you see food differently, or history differently, or your own health differently, please subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the ancestral wisdom that modern culture forgot. Tell me in the comments, which of these 20 meals surprised you the most? Which one are you going to bring into your life this week? Your answer might be the thing that changes someone else's relationship with food entirely. And if you want to go even deeper, the next video covers 15 Native American healing plants whose active compounds have now been formally confirmed in clinical settings. You will not want to miss it.